This video is going to be about miniature oil lamps. Um, this is basically going to be about are they novelty or are they actually functional? Because sometimes you will find miniature oil lamps that is not functional. They're more of a novelty. So generally you will find that in these uh, aftermarket, like Asian era produced lamps. Um, they're usually made in Hong Kong or China. They'll have these really cheap looking tops on them. Now, there's nothing wrong with most of these burners. Sometimes the little wheel in here is a little bit hard to work with. Uh, but these burners will work. It's just sometimes they don't put them on actual bases or lamp bottoms that is actually functional with enough room for enough fuel to actually use them, or they will put a glass chimney that is just too small to actually be functional. So this one, you can tell it's actually can be functional. It's just the size enough to where you could get you've got enough fuel in there to be functional. Uh, you can interchange these tops and put them on different ones, but you can tell this top is way too big for this lamp, so this top wouldn't go with this lamp. You would need a more of a chimney to fit that. You would need one a little bit smaller, but these are really finicky. These little knobs in here, they're kind of delicate. You have to be kind of careful with them, because sometimes uh, the little star it's in the center here that pushes the wick up and down, it will generally sometimes break or come loose on some of these. Some of them are just more fragile than others. This one's more of a 90s era style, but it's made to mimic a candle, so if you're used to a candle, that's what these are made to mimic. They're pretty small. You can use them basically about anywhere a small candle will set. Then you get into the bigger ones. The burners are the same size. They just put them in a more of a proportional base to where they will actually work. And you can actually tell that this one's more proportional. Sometimes they put them in a base that's just way too small to be functional. And you can just tell the difference in the two. You know, there's more functionality in this one than this one, but this one will function because it is big enough to where it will hold enough fuel. Sometimes they will just be so small that there's just no there's just no way to use them. The base is just so small that they're more of a novelty than an actual lamp themselves. You get some of them that's got a pottery base. You'll get some that's got a glass base. They burn really cool to the touch. There's no heat to them. The top will get a little bit warm, but it's not like very hot. It's warm to the touch, but not enough to where it will literally burn you. So they're pretty safe to put in little places. If you've got a small bathroom or somewhere like that, anywhere where you don't have a whole lot of room and you need just a little bit of light during an emergency, or if you just want to use it in a low lit area or space. But these work pretty good if you find them, and they're proportionate, and the base has got enough room for a big enough tank in the bottom to hold enough fuel. Then you can use these. The chimneys come in all different sizes, so if you happen to find one that's got a good base, you can find different chimneys for these. But they work pretty good. They actually cut off quite a bit of light. Now, what they basically did was they designed it to replace a candle. So you're going to get the same light as running just a regular paraffin wax candle. You're going to get the same brightness. So if you're using candles and the candles are burning faster and melting down than what you need something that's going to last longer, you can go with one of these small lamps with one of these little Hong Kong rope burners, and they'll burn for hours and hours, where a candle you may get a couple hours out of if it's a specially designed candle that's for emergency. Some of them burn slower, some of them don't. Some of them will burn up within an hour, depending on the type of paraffin wax that they're made out of. They will burn at different rates, and also the temperature will change. If it's winter time and you're in emergency, they will burn slower because it's colder. But if it's in the summertime and it's warmer, or your home's warmer inside, the candle will burn faster, melt faster. These will run a whole lot longer, depending on the tank size. If you get a big tank size like this, you could probably run you might be able to get 24 hours on something this big if you fill it all the way up. Just depending on how you set the flame and how big the flame gets. But this was basically to replace the candle, but they got a little rope burner in them, and it's just a little rope inside there, and it's like a bootlace, but it's made out of cotton. It's just a little piece of what looks like a bootlace. It's made out of cotton. You can see it in this one right here. Just a little, looks like a bootlace. They're round like a cord, goes in here. And if you have to thread one in, what you do is you get you some sewing thread. You just wrap it around it real tight, and wherever the spot is that you uh, need it really tight, you just wrap it around it real tight, and then you can pull it up through here. And when you get done, you can unwrap the thread and pull it right out. A lot of people struggles with putting these cords in, and that's the trick to these. You just wrap a piece of cotton thread around it, and all it does is compact it down enough to where it'll go up this little metal tube without any resistance. You can pull it straight up through, and that's how you put a new wick in one. But they're pretty handy, so if you find these and you need one, they made a lot of them. You can find them in all different sizes, different shapes, different colors. But they come in handy. You can get all different size chimneys. You can get long ones, tall ones, different style chimneys. But they come in handy for small areas that you don't want to put a really big lamp that gets really hot. And with the glass top on them, it keeps anything from catching on fire, whereas a candle, anything can blow into the flame, and it keeps it guarded, so it works pretty well. I like keeping these around a lot of times. If I need a little bit of light somewhere that's in a tight space somewhere, I use these. Candles come in pretty handy sometimes, but they can be a fire hazard if there's anything around that they can get close to, curtains or anything like that. The wax kind of makes a mess if it drips on anything. So I generally use these. Kerosene is what you want to use in them. If you use the paraffin replacement that a lot of places sells, it'll have dyes in the fuel, and it'll also it'll dehydrate down, and the paraffin will separate, and inside here it'll clog up your burner, and you won't be able to move your wick, and then it causes a lot of problems. So if you use it, you really have to do a lot of cleaning and changing your wicks. But if you use a kerosene, a good clean burning kerosene, you won't have to bother with it. It just evaporates and there's no residue left. That's what I generally use in all these. You don't have to do as much maintenance if you run kerosene because it's clean burning and don't leave any residue in your little burners. These little burners will clog up real easy, and the wicks will harden up and they'll just stick in there and you can't move them, and you'll tear your little stems up trying to turn them, and it just makes a whole lot of a big mess that you don't really want to fool with. So using kerosene will save you all that headache. All it'll do is when it runs out, it'll just dry up and there won't be nothing there. It's just like there was never anything in the lamp. You can turn the wicks and everything, and all you gotta do is refuel them. You don't have to worry with trying to clean them. So that's what I generally use these for. Now the candles, you can see this one's already starting to melt down. The candles is they melt really quick, and they get to where it's kind of hard to maintain them. But that's how I generally run when I need extra. Candles, I keep them on hand in the wintertime because in the wintertime they will burn a little bit slower. and you can use them in the wintertime. But I generally don't use candles as much as I use these, just simply because these burn up so fast, and you can go through a lot of candles pretty quick if you're completely off the grid with no power at all. So I recommend using these if you happen to find any and you find them the right proportion to where they're actually functional. But no, there is a lot of these floating around that's not proportional. The tanks ain't the right size, and the chimneys ain't the right size, and they're more of just a novelty item. But as long as they're big enough to where they'll fit in your hand, and the chimneys is, a good size to where they can be an actual functioning lamp, then you can use them. Some of those lamps is just unproportional. Even though they got the right size burner, the tanks won't be right, or the chimneys won't be right on them. So finding one that's proportional with the right size base that'll hold enough fuel, with a chimney that's big enough that's going to pull the heat out without overheating itself. That's what you're going to want to look for when running one of these. But that's the trick on using little miniature lamps. So if anybody's looking to run miniature lamps, that's how you determine the good ones from the just novelty ones that's made for whatnot shelves and not really made to be functional.